Recently, the government of India announced that Western Ivy Leagues are coming to Bharat. Now, these are premier institutions like Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, and many Indians aspire to send their children there. So what's wrong with them setting up shop in India?
Well, let's take the positive spin first. There's a great opportunity here. There could be benefits for Americans and for Indians, greater ties between the two countries, a flow of knowledge, talent, and understanding, etc., etc., etc. So that's all very much a positive and very much possible. But that has to be secured, that has to be ensured, because that's only one side of the coin. And as Bharatiyas, we've always had this approach of looking at the bright side, the rose-tinted glasses that, always think, well, this could be good. Let's have the Mughals come in, let's have the Brits come in and the Turks come in and so on. So I think it's about time in Bharat's recovery to start to be very positive and open-minded, but to have a look in a little bit more detail. And when you do that, that's when the interesting things start to emerge, don't they? When you are engaging with a business or you're wanting to grant a visa to somebody to come into the country, very simple things like this. You have a look at the CVs of people, don't you? You have a look at the background of the business. You have a look at its history. And I wonder whether that's really been done. Had it been done, I think the manner in which the government had approached this would be quite different. Let's think of Harvard and Oxford as two prime examples. Although Yale, I understand, is very close and not far behind. These are all institutions whose roots lie in the dark period of history that we look at as colonialism. They were established there. The wealth accrued to these institutions at that time. And the policies, the processes, the value systems that were around when these were established, they cast a long shadow. And so I think we really should have a look at those. If you look at the colonialist history of Harvard, it has a huge amount of money, and we know that a lot of it accrued during slavery. We know that a lot of the power, the land that the owners of these institutions acquired was taken under false pretenses from the indigenous people, and the Native Americans really suffered at the hands of the colonialists who established Harvard and Stanford, etc. I don't know whether you're aware of it, Nuvitha. One of the nuggets I came across in my research about that time was that I think there were 463 perhaps treaties that were entered into by the colonizers with the settlers, as they called themselves, the colonizers, with the indigenous people of America. And all of them, not a single one was adhered to. All of them were actually broken. So land was seized, peace agreements were not adhered to, and the people were moved from their lands into concentration camps or reservations, as they're called, where their freedom of movement was completely denied to them. So these attitudes, I think, they're not the exceptions to the rule. They pervaded the thinking at that time. Has it disappeared? I don't know. If we come to recent history and look at other institutions and organizations and businesses that came into Bharat over the last few decades, the cola manufacturers spring to mind, don't they? How they came into Bharat with the best of intentions and the most wonderful marketing, and yet they destroyed the indigenous industry there. Imagine what would happen if a similar scenario were to unfold in Bharat. The fledgling institutions, the fledgling academic sector in Bharat, it's flourishing at this moment in time. We have so many universities and private institutions emerging. But imagine if somebody with an enormous endowment were to come in and use its muscle and its monetary might to make it difficult for the industry to continue to thrive and prosper. That's a very valid concern. And I think these concerns really do need to be looked at by the Indian government. Perhaps they have, perhaps they haven't, but we should dig into it a little bit more, and let's see.
Yes, you're right, actually. Graduates from Oxford were deeply involved in the British East India Company. In fact, much of the ruling class of the British Raj was trained at Oxford. So this feels a bit like British East India Company 2.0.
Navitaji, it could well be that the Harvard East India Company, they came to trade, didn't they? They came to trade. They came to preach the gospel of peace and happiness and coexistence and everything else. And yet $45 trillion of wealth disappeared. 100 million people died. 25 years of successive famines. So much hardship and so much suffering came. And these institutions, I think the onus is on them to prove that they are actually of a different ilk and a different mindset, that they are not the academic versions of the East India Company with predatorial predilections and intentions. Personally, I don't think that's been done. So it's a very, very valid concern. You mentioned the students of Oxford. Oxford was established to be able to exert control over the colonies. It was established to teach people and train people in how to dominate throughout and across the empire. And it just sprang to my mind that George W. Bush was a product of Yale, and he was the one who, with his co-conspirator, Tony Blair, wreaked havoc on Iraq. Do you remember the weapons of mass destruction? There we have a product of Yale combining forces with a product of Oxford University. And there was something lacking in the integrity of these individuals. I don't think the universities were successful in nurturing the appropriate character. It may have given them skills in speech and debate, etc., but there's something fundamentally missing. And if that's a problem with the institutions which trained them, we should really be aware of that.
It's true.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.